Welcome to Off the Cuff with Des and Zane. I'm Zane.
And I'm your other host, Carissa Des. And we have a special guest today. Kult Krimes is here,
Hey,
otherwise known as London. And you are, what kind of music would you say that, what genre would you say your music is in?
best, I don't know, it's all over the place, I guess. Electronic crossover, but I don't know, multi-genre, so it's like industrial, hip-hop, but
Yeah,
it's got a little bit of everything in there.
Very cool.
that's
Yeah.
probably the thing that I enjoyed the most about what I listened to is just it wasn't like I was like, oh, this is exactly what I'm listening to, because even once I thought I knew what it was, it became something different and evolved. And
Right.
I really appreciated that about your music.
Nice, thanks. Yeah, I think it depends, like, honestly, what song you're listening to, because you can listen to one song and be like, oh, it's this thing, and then listen to another one, and
Yeah,
it's
like
like,
this trap, there's so many, you know what I mean? Like this is the trap classical. I like it. I love it. I love it.
sure.
Yeah,
Right.
no, I love the amount of layers. So, did you start off with one genre and then kind of build your way into being a multi-genre performer?
That's a good question. I don't know. I feel like I just started kind of experimenting and it just turned into what it turned into. I didn't necessarily have any kind of goal per se as what sound I was going for. I think the whole objective was just like a lack of inhibitions and try to create just whatever I wanted to. And then I think once I had like put out a handful of singles and I started dialing in like depending on the project or the
Yeah.
EP and then kind of basing it around that and then move from there.
Yeah, no,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
super interesting.
Yeah, and you play all sorts of instruments. You play the drums, you play keyboard. Are there any others that you play?
Mainly drums, keys, and then like a lot of sample work and electronics. All over the place. I suck at guitar. That's the one instrument like I tried.
Probably better than me.
I don't know. I'm like pretty bad. I feel like I play stuff where I'm just like picking random things, but like to move and do chords and shit. I suck. Yeah. But yeah, other than that, just about everything like keys and drums and vocals.
And vocals, of course.
Yeah.
Do you ever play with anybody else? Like, do vocals and then somebody else plays the instruments, or is it always you?
For the most part, it's all like everything under the Cult Crimes umbrella is all me. Like all the parts are me. Structure, all the pieces. But I have done collaborations with other artists, and then so in that case, it just depends what they do. Sometimes it's them vocals, sometimes it's both of us, and yeah, it just depends who I'm working with.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
how long have you been playing music for?
My whole life since I was like 10 years old. So I started on drums. I played drums for so many years before finally I picked up piano, started doing vocals, and then from there, I think as more electronic equipment started to come out and more sample-based equipment started to come out, that's when I was like, okay, this is actually beneficial to me because this is how my brain works. I'm like, I could do anything with this. It's just making the voice malleable and turning it into whatever I wanted to that's when I got to actually like have a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. No, that's really dope. So did I guess being a multi-instrumentalist come out of like a desire to play multiple instruments, or did it come out of a necessity for wanting to have more instruments and not having anyone to play them?
I think more of just like wanting to build songs, like full songs, exactly how I wanted to do it, and like knowing I needed to be able to create all the pieces to do so. So
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, if I want to make a song like from beginning to end, I better be able to do it all and
Yeah.
not have limitations.
Yeah, well, I think that, just the desire to create things exactly the way you want to create them kind of pushes you to do things that not everybody can do. Because learning an instrument is difficult.
Sure.
Learning two instruments is very difficult. But
Right.
you know what I mean? What you do and what you've been able to create, because like being able to create drums, you could be really good at creating drums and bad at making bass lines, but you've had to become good at bass lines, good at drums, good at synthesizers, good at sound design. Like there's so many different layers to that I think that it's just really it shows how much determination that you've had just in creating music.
For sure. Thank you.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think even just like that's a big thing now is, which I have such a respect for like really good producers, but I feel like it's a line I've never really gone down before. So lately it's been like really getting to the production aspect of making songs and just music in general and like trying to fine tune all those things, but also just mainly giving most of the focus to creating and still being as raw as I can.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you edit all of your sounds, or do you have anybody that helps you cut it up and?
I edit most of it, and then I get it to like a baseline production where I'm like, okay, this is as close as I can get to where I like it and I'm happy with it. And then I have a couple buddies who are much better at engineering and mixing than me that help me get it to like where I'm actually satisfied with it.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I also really love your videos too. Not only do I love your music, but your videos are just so artistic and so well shot. I'm sure you have help with those, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I was like, wow, very impressive. You do all of that too, on top of the music.
Sounds and visuals.
Right. Yeah, no, that's me and my buddy John, and he's been filming his whole life. So it's just us getting together and collaborating on stuff and letting both of our imaginations kind of lead that field. And sometimes it's like him with a big idea, and then both of us, go from there. And sometimes it's me, and then other times it's just like, I don't know, compartmentalized, us creating little pieces and then bringing it together to try to make some type of storyline to it.
Definitely. That's awesome.
So I guess with the thing that like I'm kind of curious about is like, I don't know, where did you start off? Did you start off in a band and you're like, oh, this is kind of cool? Or was it just like, because I guess in my experience, I wanted to make music, but I didn't have anybody to make it. So I ended up having to make everything by myself.
Right.
Like, did you start off in a band and you're like, oh, this is fun, but they're not doing what I want them to do. I can make it by myself better.
I mean, yeah, I did. I've been playing so I do still play in another project, but I play in a project called Small Leaks Sink Ships. Has been around for a while, and I was mainly just doing drums and vocals in that. And then as the albums progressed and I was learning more instruments, I ended up like incorporating that into it. And then I think just recently starting Kult Krimes or doing a solo thing was more just venturing into like pure electronic and sample based stuff, which when you're playing in a full band, you can't like just center all the music around that. So it's more just doing that. And I don't know if it was necessarily like I couldn't do what I wanted to do in Small Leaks, but there was for sure a level of the imagination where I'm like, if I want to do this, I'm just going to have to get in a booth on my own, get in the box and like create that out of nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you say that you use samples, what do you mean? Because I do a lot of like sampling stuff too, where it's like, you take a sound and you stretch it out and you do all these like, play it backwards through like a phaser, and you can do all these really cool things with just like a simple sound.
Right.
When you say that like you do sample based stuff, what do you mean by that?
All the above. So I do sample some other pieces of music that may not be mine, but then I will manipulate it to the point where it's like it becomes its own thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then, I guess maybe sampling isn't the right term, because a lot of times it's me like creating the sounds, or I do a lot of things like Stovetop, the most recent video. That song is like me just laughing and making sounds into an OP1 and then replaying it, so then all the laughter is in each key, and then I'm making melodies out of it.
So mad because that is so genius, and I never would have thought of it. I'm mad because I didn't think of it, not because. Yeah, I don't know. I was really impressed with the music that I had gotten a chance to listen to, and it really made me like, I don't know. It just inspires me because there's the things that you can do with music. I feel
There's no limit.
There really is no limit.
Really is.
And you can kind of get shy and be like, oh, well, maybe it's all just pianos or it's all just this. But then you see an artist create something that is just so unique that you're like, what sound did you even start off to make the percussion? And I'm trying to unwrap the drums that you made, which are just different weird sounds and stuff.
Right.
It's like I can't even imagine what went into everything else and all the other layers.
Yeah, which happened. I mean, that's the thing to me, is like that's what inspires me a lot of the time, is hearing other creatives or artists making these sounds, and I'm just like, what the fuck is that? Like, how did they do that? And then really nerding out about it, and then seeing the way that progresses and the point of expansion from there. I'm always just in awe
So
by
is that like a point of pride for you when people like listen to your stuff and like, how the fuck did you do that?
Yeah, not the intention, but definitely like seeing that response. I'm like, okay, that's pretty rad.
Yeah, exactly. Not only does it sound good, but you don't understand how it happened. Like,
right.
Yeah, I can see where that would kind of be a cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how do you get in the headspace to be so creative without a filter?
I think it's just trusting yourself. It's like, it's finding the child in you and just like not being afraid to try things that maybe silly. I mean, for me, a lot of times too, it'll start off as something that's kind of goofy, like just sounds ridiculous or just really silly. But for me personally, I'm like, well, I love it, so I don't care. But then once you kind of mix it with everything else, then I'm able to get it to a point where I'm like, okay, this is listenable, I guess, and still having fun doing so. But then like actually embedding like real emotion in it instead of it just being this like fun, silly experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So like
Yeah.
lyrically, where do you go? Once you've kind of gone in the direction that you want to instrumentally, you've laid down that layer. It's like you're also a vocalist. So what's what is the thing you want to bring with your vocals? Is it a more serious message? Is it a relaxed party? What?
I think it's moment to moment. It depends whatever I'm feeling at the time. Where I feel like, this most recent album I put out, which is my first full length, was not at all what I thought it would be, but it's like the year leading up to it, I went through a lot of emotional trauma, just a lot of deep shit. So it's kind of ended up that way. So for me, I have to lyrically, vocally, whatever ends up on it, it has to come from an honest place, from whatever I'm feeling in that moment.
Right.
And sometimes it is just ridiculous and I'm having fun. And then other times it's like, it's coming from pain, which I think a lot of artists do. It's like whatever you're going through in your life that is very painful or messes you up somehow, you have to transcend that in some way. And that's what music and art has always been to me. It's more cathartic, if anything. And so whatever the viewer takes that as, or whatever the listener takes that as, it's like, cool, whatever works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like obviously music is a great way to express yourself. Do you feel that you have an easier time expressing yourself through your music or like communicating through your music than, in other ways in your life?
I think so. I think the combination of music and visuals, which is why I'm so obsessive with visual art too, and why me and John create what we do from a lot of Cult Krimes music is, I think the combination of it ultimately, like the songs that do have videos for it is like, you really, to me anyways, you're getting the bigger message, which I've had some people, I feel like some songs don't hit for certain people and then then the video comes out for it and all of a sudden it becomes like their favorite song, where I'm feeling like, well, maybe the song now makes sense to you now that there's like a visual component to it.
For sure.
Yeah,
Giving off the actual vibe of it, which I never even realized at first until I was making more and more videos and then seeing that reaction and then wanting to like double down on that and go, okay, well, let's really get into like the cut of this song and try to, get that out in the visual.
Get the most meaning that you can out of the music and then add as much meaning as you can through the visuals.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So how do you, when you're performing live, how do you kind of like project that, like your style that you have in your videos to your audience?
I don't know. I think live, I almost black out. I think live, I don't know if that comes from playing on the drums for so many years live, which is very like just primitive. You're just putting your energy into this thing and beating the shit out of something and it's like coming out of you. And so that is new for me in the past couple of years, all of a sudden like standing up with a mic and playing. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like maybe not being stationary anymore on a drum. That's what's still happening, but in motion. So it really is just a raw in the moment thing. I'm not trying to do anything, but maybe I've always thought about like live production anyways, or like almost theater-esque, inviting that into it, where I kind of want to put that in between songs where it kind of becomes this storyline from beginning to end. But I haven't figured out how to do that yet, slowly over time.
Yeah.
Maybe next year we'll see you live and see that in motion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I actually saw you at a space called Renegade, which is that warehouse with like a bunch of graffiti everywhere, and it was such a cool vibe. Like when I showed up, you were actually performing, and it did feel very raw. Is that kind of like your favorite? What's your favorite place to, like your favorite venues? Are they like that where they're just kind of like DIY, or do you prefer like something with better sound, I guess?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I think like I like them for different reasons. Like I love the energy of a DIY space and just a bunch of people getting together and it's like a hurrah and no one gives a shit. Like that's a lot of fun. I totally love that environment. But at the same time, like to have a stage, perfect sound, like your monitors, everything the way it needs to be is also being immersed in your own music better. So it's a give and take. If I could have the best of both worlds, I'd be like,
It could
that's
be in a
what's up.
cool
Yep.
space. And
Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem to exist. So I don't know.
We're working
Not
on
yet.
it.
Right.
Over here in Halo space.
There you go.
Oh no, that's really cool. So as far as albums, you said that this last one was your first full length one. Were you releasing EPs before that? Was it, and if you were releasing EPs and singles, was that because you didn't have the amount of songs to do it, or you just didn't feel comfortable putting it all in order?
Yeah, I don't think I had like a concept in my head yet to make an album or what worked as an album. So yeah, I was kind of like everything was just little chunks that I was slowly
You wanted
releasing.
to share it.
Yeah. I'm like, this is a thing, so let's just leave that with this with that, and then finally getting to the point where I'm like, I want to make an actual album, and then felt like I had the space to do so.
Yeah. What was the hardest part about making the album?
I think probably just the mechanics of all of it. Like, I was making it in different studios at different times. I was also changing my like I was working out of Pro Tools and then switching to Ableton, and that kind of happening after like 3/4 of the album was done. But then a bunch of space went by when I finished a lot of the songs. So it's like some of the songs on the album are like 2 years old, and then some of them are like a few months old.
Sure.
So then it's like making that work together, because I feel like, I know 2 years maybe not be a long time, but I feel like for anybody
feels
it
when
feels that way.
musically,
It's like you'll listen to a song and be like, oh, I'm making completely different music.
Yeah. I've listened to something that was like a year ago and been like, oh wow, that's like I have improved, and it doesn't feel like it when you're doing it day to day, but when you like go back and look back, you're like, oh wow, like I thought this was really good, or you're like, wow, this was really good. It's like lasted, the test of time.
Right, for sure.
As far as like music lasting the test of time, what's like a song that you've had, for a while that like you still enjoy doing?
Ooh. Like, I enjoy playing, or that I'm still...
You're still like, it's a song of yours that you're a fan of. Yeah, you're still a fan of.
Not much, man. If I'm being straight up, I'm always like, by the time I put out any song or any album, I'm already over it. I'm like already going to the next thing, and that's what I'm hyped about, which sucks because, and I think it just comes from hearing it so many times. It's like, you're hearing it so many times when you're writing it. Then when it's done written, you're hearing so many times when you mix it. And then you make a video for it. And so you're like shooting a video for a few days, and you listen to it like 40 times.
As you're like mouthing the words, you're like, wow, I hate this song.
Yeah.
You're like, I can't listen to this song anymore.
Right. Over this. But I guess I have my favorites. I think Stovetop is like something personally I really love, because it's, to me, I don't like, it doesn't sound like anything to me. I really can't put it in any kind of box. I love the variations of it and just the way the song was made and the content of it. And yeah, I think overall that one really does it for me.
Yeah, awesome.
Nice. So who are some musicians that inspired you when you first started or making music when you were 10 or like later on in life? Who are like your biggest inspirations musically?
Growing up, when it was just drumming, I kind of learned from a lot of like jazz drummers. My dad was a jazz musician, and so most of it was like jazz and funk, and that went on for years. And at the same time, I was like heavily in the punk rock scene, so I was like really into punk rock music, but I didn't like playing punk rock music because jazz was way more technical, and that like the challenge there was more appealing than punk rock. And so then when I got older, anything that was pushing the envelope or just trying something new is what inspired me. Anybody who was like really trying to do something that wasn't done before, even if it technically was always what it did for me. And that always changed. It's like I listened to crazy electronic dance music to hip hop to industrial shit, which is why it all gets kind of blended and incorporated into my music. So there isn't many specifics. It's always like, this year I'm listening to these 10 artists a lot, or there's an album that really did it for me, and it's just always shifting and changing, I feel like.
Nice. Yeah, I could definitely see the punk influence in your music, even though I wouldn't say that your music is punk at all. Well, I guess it's punk because you do push limits. So, but yeah, I can definitely see the the
He's
inspiration
doing it
behind
his
that.
damn self.
Yeah.
Yep.
God
Right.
damn. God damn. They meant be creative. They didn't mean literally do all of it yourself.
Got it.
No, it's super impressive. The thing that I was going to ask was about collaborations. Is that something that like that you're open to? Is that something that
Absolutely, and I've been doing it way more. Like I just put out a collaboration with an artist called Amigara out of Phoenix, and he's an electronic producer. And he does weird, like crazy.
if you say he's weird, now I have to check him out.
He's a buddy of mine too, so he's a weird guy. I love him to death. I love the shit he makes, but super technical, like very glitchy. He's an amazing drummer too, so it's like really complex beats in it.
Yeah.
And so we just put out a song together last month, and then I have a few more collaborations. I think I was getting sick of myself in a way the past 6 months after putting out an album. I just all of a sudden really wanted to like make stuff with other artists. So yeah, 3 more in the works. I have one coming out on I think the 20th of this month, which with a artist called Loam, which is 2 dudes, and it's like a straight up pop like banger kind of track, and I love the way it turned out. So, and then I have another one in the works that's like way more raw, really aggressive, and yeah, no holds barred kind of thing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So would you say that your music is similar to any other musician or band's music, or are you completely in your own league? Is there something that you can kind of compare it to if somebody were to ask, like, what is your music like?
Oh man, once again, it's like it depends what song you listen to, so it's tough. Because I try to ask that from like my homies or just like fans and stuff, every once in a while to get an idea of what they think it sounds like or they compare it to. And it sucks because most people are like, no, I can't compare it to. It doesn't remind me of anything, or it doesn't fit in a certain genre, which maybe I should make it fit in the genre.
I don't think you should. I don't think you should.
You have it. There we go.
It's the Kult Krimes.
Yeah, it's the
genre.
Yeah.
Do you feel like any other local musicians try to like bite your style since you've been like in the music scene?
Not that I know of. I don't know.
I'm going to. 100%. I'm gonna fucking try, man.
I'm all for it.
Dude, it's the coolest shit.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
No,
yeah, if I can inspire anybody to want to create something that's like reminiscent to what I'm doing, fucking go for it. I think that's awesome. Like, I'm good with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was actually why I was asking you about the collaborations, because it's like this music that you create is like very much. I like hip hop, but it does kind of get boring, and it's like I like electronic, but sometimes there's not enough for me to attach myself to. It's not,
right.
So it's like when I hear something that I don't know. I've always wanted to do something different, and when I hear somebody doing something different, I'm just like, okay, how can I share a space with this person?
Sure.
So I that's why I was curious if that was something that you looked into. Would you ever work with a hip hop artist? I guess would be my next question.
Oh yeah, I think I'd work with any artist of any genre as long as the chemistry is there.
Absolutely.
It's like I've definitely had, which I'm sure you have too, where you try to collaborate with someone that you even like their stuff, but the energy's not there between you two, and
Absolutely.
It's like pulling teeth a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And eventually you just got to be like, which sucks if it's with a friend and they really want to work together and it's not working. You got to be like, well, this ain't happening.
Oh
tried.
boy, can I relate?
We tried.
Like, do I ghost them or do I tell them?
Yeah, not me, it's you.
Gonna slowly walk away.
You just like a spin move.
Yeah.
Like in the middle of recording, you're like,
Yeah, stand up.
It's the Homer Simpson gif where he
He's
just
like slides into the
bushes.
Yeah.
Where's the
Exactly. That is exactly. Okay. Well, I guess the next question that I would want to know is there anything that we can expect from you in the next year and a half?
So right now we're kind of shifting, me and John anyways, the other dude who works with me on the videos, we're kind of shifting from music videos, which we'll still do them down the line. I think just right now we're kind of shifting from doing music videos to actually creating short films and like experimental art films, I guess is what you'd call them.
That's
That's
awesome.
really cool.
So yeah, we're working on a handful of those. We just need to actually finish them or wrap them up, actually, like, you know, bring them to a close. But we're having a blast to do that. I have a bunch of songs I'm working on. I feel like none of them are finished right now. I have like 20 tracks I'm working on.
Well, that's
I think I have,
exciting,
like,
though.
3, yeah. And I think maybe 3 of them are complete, and then more collabs. So yeah, I'm all over the place. I'm gonna always be all over the place. It's just that's where I feel like I flourish. I get bored really quick, so I'm just always like, what can we do next? What can we do?
Yeah.
What are we working on now?
That's
Who's with me?
It's how you become a multi-instrumentalist.
Yes.
It's not from sitting down and playing guitar for 10 hours.
Right.
Yeah. And I feel like that keeps the energy flowing too when you're like not just we've talked about like putting all your eggs in one basket, but like keeping that energy flowing, I think, I think is the best way to do it.
I agree. Absolutely.
So where will you be putting out your short films when you're done with them? On social media, or will they be in like on YouTube? Or?
I think the ones I think the more experimental like short art films are going to be like, yeah, just social media and on all those platforms, YouTube, Vimeo, all that shit. And then the ones that are actually taking like production and a bigger budget, we'll probably get those in some type of film festival. I don't know yet. I think it's something we've like haven't got. I think once we finish it, then we'll tackle like where it's gonna be and how we release it. But I think those will release proper, and then everything else will be more, you know, here you go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And will your music be like the background music for those, do you think?
Scoring them?
Or
I'll be scoring them. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll be doing all the
Awesome.
audio from the actual music in it, the score. I'm gonna take my hand at doing Foley and ABS, which is like the actual sound
You
effects.
could
and-
100% do Foley.
Right? Yeah. I've
What's
already
Foley?
done it's like sound replacement for, you know, if something gets hit, but obviously that actual raw sound sucks, so you have to replace it with something.
Like
'Cause everything,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to
That
make
sounds fun.
sounds. Yeah.
which is that I've always said, like, when I was for years, I was like, if I didn't make songs or music, that's something I would want to do.
That's 100% makes sense because
Yeah.
you literally are like, that's the coolest thing about Foley is that like they look at, you know, a pan and they're like, yeah, that sounds like thunder, you know, like but everyone else just sees a pan and you're
Right.
like, no, but if I hit it with like a piece of glass, it makes a different sound than.
Totally. When you watch them do it, like it looks so much fun because they just
those
so
guys are
go
having,
in
they're
the
like
zone.
kids
Yeah,
playing.
exactly. And they just have all this stuff around, but they're watching the movie happen. They're just like,
Yeah.
here we go.
Yeah.
I would love to have that job. To
Yeah,
actually
right.
get paid to do that for big movies. That would be like great,
wait,
right?
someone gets paid to do this? Sign me up.
It's like one of those jobs that you don't like expect to do like as your career when you're younger, but it's just like you fall into it because that's what you've been
Yeah.
doing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, is there anything that you'd like to leave us with? You know, before we go, just something that's you know, whether it's social media, whether it's like, you know, the shout out for an album that, you know, we can actively go and support you. You know, is there merch that we can buy? What can we
Support
do?
your local artist.
Yeah.
Yes. How can we support this local artist?
You could go to Kult Krimes Bandcamp to get any merch or songs. Good Grief is the album I just put out. We dropped the Still Breathing video, I think that was last weekend, so that's pretty new.
That's
and
new.
then,
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and then next song, I'm pretty sure it's May 20th, which is a Friday, is a collaboration with an artist called Loam. And that's it right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then on Instagram, of course, Kult Krimes is
Kult
all
Krimes.
one word, right?
Mhm.
Okay. And that's where all your videos
Ks.
and music and everything is too. So
Yeah.
check it out.
Check it.
Excellent. Dope. Well, thank you for joining us. I had a really
Yeah,
good
thank you so
time.
much.
Absolutely.
It's great chatting with you,
Definitely.
and I'm excited to see those short films and the new music that you're putting out because I feel like you're always putting new stuff out. So I'm gonna keep an eye on that for sure.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been another episode of Off the Cuff with Des and Zane,
I've been Zane,
and I'm Carissa.
and this has been a lot of fun. Peace, love, and donuts.
Peace, love, donuts.
You're supposed to say pew pew. We almost did
Oh,
it.
pew pew. Okay.